Hello everyone and welcome to Racing Weekly, a YouTube and podcast show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Delighted this week to have Sam Turner and Pat Cooney alongside me. Pat, it looks like you've been in the sunshine a little bit at Newmarket. Is that right?
Yes, Costa Newmarket. 3 days. Caught napping on day one on the Thursday because I woke up and there was clouds in the sky, so I thought keep the sun cream away. And then I put the 30 on Friday and the factor 50 on Saturday. So I was getting the hang of it.
But the horse had bolted.
Yeah, it had. Most definitely. I saw Pat Saturday morning. He looked at a good cherry colour.
Yeah.
Very crimson.
Where have you been recently?
Not anywhere as nice as Pat. I was at Newmarket Saturday. It was nice. Enjoyed my day there on Racing TV with Ruby Walsh and Lydia and Nick. And a couple of days at the cricket last week as well. So that was marvellous scenes.
Living the dream as always, both of you. Well, this now time, stop the dreaming, back to reality, and now time for Racing Weekly's Racing Recap. Lots of really good racing to reflect on, and obviously the Group 1 last week, the July Cup, produced a famous winner in the sense that anyone who remembers racing from the 80s, Pat and Chief Singer, would have seen those colours carried to victory again in a similar sort of manner by Alcohol Free.
Alcohol Free, and what a marvellous filly she is. She's won a Group 1 as a 2-year-old, as a 3-year-old, and now as a 4-year-old. And the mile experiment didn't seem to be working out, did it, in the first 2 runs of this season? I thought she ran okay, dropped back to 6 last time and had some sort of a chance. But I wasn't expecting her to win in the style that she did. Maybe a few of the others disappointed for whatever reason, but she won in fine style and now back up to a mile next time out, I think.
I love the way they're campaigning her, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, you look at her 2 marquee performances before Saturday, over a mile in the Coronation with cut in the ground, Sussex Stakes as well, cut in the ground. And then she goes and runs like that and wins like that over 6 furlongs on the fastest ground that we've probably seen all summer. It was an astonishing performance, really, and brilliant for a friend of the show, Rob Hornby, as well, who has enjoyed a little bit of an up and down season. Obviously, the Beckett team have lost scope, and he lost the ride in the Irish Derby, but he bounced back in great fashion July Cup week, and enjoyed incredible success with horses that we're going to mention going through the programme.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Rob, obviously, because he also won the Falmouth. But just in relation to Alcohol Free, lining up next in the Sussex, taking on Baid, Curragh, how do you see that? What's the betting? Is it, regardless of who else is in there, Baid, it's all about Baid?
Yeah, it is all about Baid. Looking at the nature of the race, you can see the number of runners on the day being a single figure, for sure. Baid's going to scare an awful lot away. Alcohol Free, well, if she's going to run, why be 20 to 1, which other firms are right now? We've got her in at 10 to 1, which is pretty much how we'd see it on the day. So with 2 on Baid, you've got the 2 Godolphin horses, either or, isn't it? Curragh or Native Trail. Yeah. They'll be the second in, and she'll be in that sort of pack for third favourite. So she's going to run. Why not take 20 to 1 each way, first 3 places elsewhere right now?
There you go.
The great thing about it is that she probably wouldn't have run Saturday but for her owner. He was adamant that she should be running that race, and he's adamant that she should be running in the Sussex. She's been aggressively campaigned, and as Pat says, to win Group 1s at 2, 3 and 4, I mean, her broodmare status is well confirmed and very valuable.
Absolutely. And Andrew Balding, actually, in fairness to him, after she ran at Ascot, he said they'd kind of worked out what to do with her ahead of the July Cup, and it all came to fruition at Newmarket on the weekend. Just have a brief look at some of the other races, if we can, from the July meeting. The Bet365 Superlative Stakes, Isaac Shelby, Pat, really good performance. 2 out of 2 now. I think both he and the runner-up, Victory Dance, are quite smart.
Yes, and Victory Dance, saw him in the parade ring. He's a magnificent-looking horse, very heavy horse, a bit like Native Trail. And maybe the fast ground did for him, perhaps. But I know Charlie Apple. He normally runs one of his best ones in this race. He had the race last year with Native Trail, and he said the same to me. He had a horse called Quarto, who was a real high class.
And won the national stakes.
Yeah, and we've sponsored that particular race now for about 5 years. He's won it 3 times, and I remember last year saying to me, "I'll always run a good one in it." So he must think highly of the second. Yeah. And the Brian Meehan horse, not often a Brian Meehan horse wins first time out as a juvenile, so yeah, he must be pretty decent as well. It seemed like a decent race, and I think the form will work out well.
Brian Meehan was under no illusions early on with this horse that he had a star on his hand.
Yeah, and you could tell that from the SP at Newbury first time up, couldn't you? Like 130 for a mean horse first time up. Yeah. Obviously very well fancied and very professional at the gate at Newbury and again at Newmarket on Saturday, almost like an old sprinter the way that he shoots out the gate, nicks a length or two, and very professional the way that he moves through the race as well. It was a little bit of a... It could have been a little bit of a steward's choir. They didn't actually call one in the end, did they? But they looked as though they got close together from the side on. The head on told us that there was sufficient gap as the winner was just rolling in on Victory Dance a bit. Yeah,
Sean Levy picked up a couple of days ban for that. The winner and possibly the runner-up looking like the Champagne Stakes, the Dewhurst. And they're talking about the Breeders' Cup juvenile turf for Isaac Shelby as well. Does he appeal to you right now as a potential? I mean, to go down that route, you're going to have to be close to being a champion 2-year-old.
Yeah, I didn't go wow, I have to say, with the pair of them. I just thought, yes, they're going to be very smart. They're going to be competitive. Maybe single-figure prices in wherever they go next. Yeah. Have we seen next year's Guineas Derby's winners yet? Maybe, but I suspect.
So lukewarm, isn't he?
Well, I think
you want to see him come out.
Well, the bookmakers didn't go wow, did they? No. I think he was 50 going into the race for the Guineas. Yeah. Now sort of 25 poke. Right. It was a bit. I wouldn't say it was a performance, but it was like it was his second run, wasn't it? Yeah. He came out of a maiden into a group race, and I always think it's really commendable when any horse does that and builds on that. So,
what noise then are you going to make for the winner of the Bet365 Duchess of Cambridge Stakes? Morge held off Lazoo, survived a Stewards' Inquiry as well. What noise did you make for Isaac Shelby and Victory Dance?
Nah.
Okay, and what noise are you going to do for... It's brutal. Have you got a noise for these two?
Well, I thought there was merit in them.
Words.
But again, the Guineas winners, I don't know. Morge, she's not very big, so will she train on as a 3-year-old? I don't know. You just sense they'll be better come the end of the season, but they're going to run in these, big juvenile fillies races between now and the end of the year. And if they keep on producing form like that, they're going to be close.
She's going to be safe for the Cheveley Park, isn't she?
Yeah, and that grunt was more the result of the race rather than the performance. And
was she definitely the best horse in the race?
I don't know. I think that's up for question. And I'm disappointed that with the standard of riding at the moment, we're seeing a lot of these big races and horses are rolling around and not being corrected quickly enough. And speaking to somebody, canvassing a bit of opinion on Saturday from a couple of people who would know infinitely more about this than me, is that it's purely down to the fact that a rider is stronger with one arm than he is with the other. Yeah. And he's preferring to use the right arm if he's right-handed, and he doesn't want to pull through because he knows that he can't give 4 or 5 the same way as he would do 4 or 5 with a right arm. And that's why we're having these problems.
At the Stewards' Inquiry, Pat, we were chatting a little bit earlier on about the dynamic between Ray Dawson, the way he spoke, and the way Frankie was perhaps making a few of.
It's very
Well, it was a compare and contrast really. Ray Dawson, I think, said too much, and Frankie said not enough. And if I'm a backer of the Frankie horse who was runner-up, I would say, go on then. You've only got beat half a length. Just go in there and say, I've lost more than a length in running. That's it. But Frankie was, no, okay, that's it. Nothing really more to say. Ray Dawson was more, in hindsight, I should have stopped riding and then got her straight. But I didn't. But, I should have done. And I just said, no, just say, well, look, the raw, the raw fillies, half-fast ground, rolling around. I was always going to win, but one didn't say enough, and the other said too much. I would have been disappointed in Frank.
What's the point in having either of them in to say anything? There's enough angles, isn't there, these days? Nowadays. Scout angles, whatever. Stewards are professional; they can make their own mind up. I mean, I'm all for a central band of stewards, to be honest, and then we get some consistency through the decisions. But the stewards on Saturday, hopefully, would have just been able to make their own mind up without hearing an account from the jockeys.
I would like the jockeys available. Should there be a question to be asked, but I don't think we necessarily have to hear from them.
No. And that line, please wait outside, Mr. Dawson. What's he going to do? He's got to go and wait outside, hasn't he?
Slightly more effusive, enthusiastic noises about Rob Hornby once again. Now, we talked about his Group 1 success in the July Cup and alcohol-free. It was the double because earlier in the week he won the Falmouth Stakes with Prosperous Voyage, beating very short price favourite in Spiral. Pat, obviously a great result for the bookmakers.
Yes, in Spiral, when we were talking about the race beforehand, you're thinking, well, look, all I've got really is maybe the dreaded bounce factor. That's all I've got. And maybe it came to fruition. But look, I was there, it was 30 degrees. I didn't feel like walking around, never mind running a mile. And maybe the ground was faster than she was used to, and maybe it just wasn't her thing. As for the winner, well, she'd been beaten, she ran very well in the 1,000 meters, didn't she? So she's a perfectly meritorious winner of the Falmouth. And connections, I spoke to Rafe Beckett on Saturday, and he said, well, I suppose we're going to bump into in Spiral again, but he thought the key for Prosperous Voyage was just the straight mile. So they blamed the bend at Ascot.
Yeah.
Well, blamed the bend, but that was their thought process. So she's only going to run on a straight track again. So probably back to Newmarket. Well, I think Deauville got a mention as well. But 9-1 on in Spiral. There'll be other days for her, won't there?
Just a quick question, Pat. I mean, obviously she was a bit bigger than that, wasn't she? She was like 4 of it. Would you see a lot of business at 4 on for 5 on?
Well, I think the way it really worked out, Sam, it wasn't any flamboyant, lumpy bets or anything. I think it was people just, like we've all been guilty of on the football accumulators. You think, right, well, I'll throw in then Barcelona because they're 8-1 on. So it was a real coupon bust.
Taxpayer.
Would she be the
As
middle?
we used to do back in the day.
She'd be the middle box of the Union Jack. Remember the old Union Jack?
Yeah.
Put in Spiral and then game's over.
Absolutely.
Brief word about the Dettori Gosden dynamic, because we did speak about that at length. That's all come back to. Was there any negative comments from Dettori about John Gosden after the race and the choice of firing in Spiral back in the Falmouth?
Well, I mean, they say a week's a long time in politics.
I'm being facetious.
You are.
I'm being facetious.
They say a week's a long time in politics, even shorter in racing, isn't it?
I'd love it if Frank and Dettori had joked, said John's going to take a sabbatical after this result. I'm just going to let him stew on it for a bit. But, once we've settled, we'll all get back together again and be happy. But none of that, obviously.
No. I didn't hear a lot of contrition after the race, no.
Move on and talk about the July Stakes. Persian Force, who I think the Hannons were surprised that he didn't win the Coventry, but he might have bumped into a very, very good horse on that day. But subsequent to the success in the July Stakes at Newmarket, they're talking about that they think this might be a 2,000 guineas winner.
Well, he could be. He was certainly visually impressive, wasn't he? Now, admittedly, his task was easy with the late withdrawal of the Aidan O'Brien Royal Ascot winner with Little Big Bear.
Yep.
So his task was made considerably easier. But didn't he look the part visually when he just, Ross Ryan just let him go and he just put daylight between him and the others? I suppose the guineas is a target. We've actually made him favourite for the 2,000 guineas. I just can't get my head round it.
What price is he?
He's 16 to 1.
Right, okay.
I can't get my head round the fact a Brocklesby winner is going to win the 2,000 guineas. I wish he hadn't won the Brocklesby because I would like his chances a lot more. But I'm thinking, hang on, Brocklesby, the first 2-year-old race of the season, and he's going to do that and that and that, and then he's going to win.
It's a man for tradition, isn't he?
I wish he hadn't run in the Brocklesby because I'd have loved him even more as a guineas horse.
His speed figure in the Brocklesby was unbelievable, wasn't it? Absolutely astonishing. He's tough, hardy, durable. I spoke to somebody quite close to Ammo Racing tail end of last week, and Ross was very keen just to leave some petrol in the tank for future engagements, and which is exactly what he did. He got the job done, didn't he? There was no requirement from the owner to go to the BHA to get the victory anointed. And he's exactly the same as his sire, really, isn't he? He was second in a Coventry, wasn't he, Memas, and then came out and won a July Stakes, so he's following a pattern there. But yeah, I wonder whether I see him as a true miler, if I'm honest, but his temperament gives him a chance, I think, of getting the trip, and he'll be trained like a guineas horse, won't he?
Yeah, he'll be trained like a guineas horse, and if he doesn't stay, then he drops back down for Commonwealth Cup aspirations.
That's the beauty of it. You could be the perfect power next season.
That's it.
Princess of Wales Stakes, a horse who, it's not the easiest one to work out, but Yabir bounced back to form. Sam, I'll start with you on this one. He's obviously a very high-class horse when things go right. Clearly with him, and I know Charlie Appleby spoke about pace of the race, etc., but It's a bit mental in the mind. It's
Yeah,
gotta be-
I think so, but I just do think he just wants a gallop to aim at. When he gets that certain set of circumstances, these small field conditions races on the Rowley Mile or wherever it might be, it just, there's no hiding place for him really. Whereas on the July course, they went a good gallop, he got a little bit of cover, and he just outstayed him. It was a modest field, let's be honest. So if Mostadaf has got breathing problems, he travelled up quite nicely. It would have been nice to see those go hammer and tongue with no ailments emerging through the race. But it was a fair enough performance from Yabir, and he'll be off on his travels now, won't he?
Sword Dancer, I think, next for him.
Saratoga, is it?
Yeah. What did you think of that?
Well, I think his CV implies he's better in America, and I suppose that could be because it's a more stronger pace for him to aim at.
Generally, you would think that, although a few of the races recently suggest that they don't do enough.
He does seem to be better equipped for the American style of racing, which is, we would say, more speed than anything else. But you'd still think long and hard about backing him at odds on.
Well, exactly. I mean, he's already been turned over at odds on.
Yeah, I'd rather back him at 10-1 for a harder race than 2-1 on for
a very good point. In France on Sunday, the Prix Jean Prat won by Tenebrism, who slow burner to a degree this season. Pretty good run at Ascot in the coronation, and stepped forward from that to win over 7 furlongs, Pat. I thought she was always in control of the race. As soon as Ryan Moore got the gap, bang, she's gone.
Yeah, she's one that's been hard to get a proper handle on, really. And when she won on the all-weather as a 2-year-old, then she reappeared 6 months later, didn't she? In
Cheveley
Newmarket.
Park, yeah.
And I remember speaking to the connections and was going, well, we don't know how good she is, but she doesn't show much. But we wanted to have a runner. Bang, she wins the Cheveley Park, Guinea's favourite, and the ball hasn't really bounced away. But she looked the part yesterday. I don't know if it's all about the 7th furlong. That's the key to her. But she travelled so well. I'm sure the connections can move up in trip with her. She looks one that could go to America, couldn't she, for over the mile?
Breeders' Cup Mile looks right up her street.
But she's nice to see her back in business.
Beat Flotus, didn't she, in the Cheveley Park? That form's starting to work out quite nicely as the season progresses.
What about the Colts form? Because obviously she was ahead of
Light Infantry.
Games. Light Infantry was second. He obviously, I did think he actually ran too badly in the Guineas. Light Infantry. I think the ground found him out.
I think it found Tenebrism out. I think she might have been reading between the lines a little bit jarred up after Newmarket.
Yeah.
And I don't think she was probably fully wound up for the coronation. But she only got beat 5 lengths, didn't she?
And she was picking up. I think she's effective at a mile.
Yes.
As she is over 7. I think she's obviously clearly a top class horse. But I think I'm just wondering about how you see like the horse like Modern Games, who returned. He was obviously a very good 2-year-old. Returned, won the French Guineas, placed in the French Derby, and then he's. What did you think? Was it the 7 furlongs or?
Yeah,
he just didn't look.
No.
He travelled all right, and then never really picked up.
No, and maybe just needs to go back up to the mile. I thought Light Infantry ran well, as you said. I think a bit of cutting the ground wouldn't go amiss for him.
There might be a big prize in him later in the year.
Well, the good thing with the Light Infantry is he's trained by David Simcock, who won our Bunbury Cup with Bless Him at 25-1.
Worcestershire fan, just say.
Okay, well, despite that.
Pair not aware.
But there's a stable, they have hit top form now, and I think Jamie Spencer rides an awful lot for them, so don't be afraid about backing any of David Simcock's over the next couple of weeks.
All right, just mention a few other races and you can tell me your other highlights. There was Chindit, who won the Summer Mile in a great battle with Mutasabek.
Great battle, good old Mutasabek. But to be fair to the horse, he's campaigned over the wrong trip, isn't he? 5 starts over in excess of 7 furlongs, 7th, 8th, 2nd, 3rd, 2nd. He's 4 from 5 over 7 furlongs. The only defeat coming in the Jersey when he was drawn 1 on very soft ground.
Should have run
Get him over
something else.
He's in the Celebration Mile at Goodwood, not the Lennox.
Why don't people listen to you?
There's a good reason why they don't.
Pat already mentioned Bless Him, who won the Bunbury Cup at a big price, and Adrian Power was second for the Harry Eustace team on Friday. Mentioned that one. And Mark winning the John Smiths at York. Some other really good performances over the week. So much good racing that part of it gets lost, as we know, at this time of the season. Anything else that stood out for you, Pat?
Well, away from Newmarket, I nipped in to watch one of the races at York, Royal Acclaim, and I just thought I didn't quite know what was behind it because I hadn't paid much attention. But I was watching one, and I thought, okay, because I thought it was a step up in class for her.
Yes,
she'd won a class 4 and a class 5.
Yep.
I thought, okay, listed company. yeah, they seem to rate her, but we'll find out how good she is. And after I thought, oh, okay. You know, I wouldn't want to be opposing you in a hurry over 5 furlongs. And
but you are. You're 7-2.
Well,
Top price in the village for the Nunthorpe.
But that'll be a harder race to win than Nunthorpe. But
What did you think of that performance?
I was blown away by it, really. I mean, it's nice for Connections that they've got another good sprinter. Because was it far ahead or far above?
Far above. Who won the Newmarket? He won. Was it the
Yeah,
Abernathy?
I mean, he looked a real machine, didn't he?
He was
then
fragile, wasn't he?
Yeah, he got injured very quickly, and unfortunately we didn't see him again. But they've got another special one from stall 1 as well for an inexperienced filly. I thought it was a really, really good effort, and she was strong in the market as well, which probably tells you that they've got something a bit special.
Okay. Anything else that you mentioned from the weekend?
Quick line on Bless Him.
Yeah.
You know, to win like he did on a speed fairing track where it paid to be handy. The July Cup showed that. They were all up in the van. All the races pretty much through the 3 days at Newmarket, and he won from off the pace. 2 lessons I learned over the weekend: not to be dogmatic about alcohol-free, and not to be dogmatic about the way that races are going to be run, perhaps like the Bunbury Cup, because obviously we lost I'm a Gambler. That affected the pace of the race, and Bless Him, who had some very, very strong form going into the race, was 25-1, and nobody thought it could win because they couldn't come off the pace.
David Simcock, the way he handles these older horses.
Yeah, he's an 8-year-old, isn't
I mean, incredible. Sheikh Zayed Road was another horse that he kept going for season upon season. Brilliant with these.
What's that stare he's got? Is it Cash?
Cash, who hasn't run since he was second to Westover.
Yeah, I did speak to David after the Bunbury because I presented the trophy to him. I asked him about Cash. And of course, he was second in our Sandown trial to
Westover,
which looks good form. And we all thought he was, you know, probably the better prospect of the 2, Cash.
I got told off for saying he wasn't, but no.
Oh, okay. But I said to him, "How is Cash?" And he said, "Oh, he's fine. He's had his problems, but he's got Group 1 form, and he'll have Group 1 entries, and we're hoping for a good second half of the season too. But he's fine. I couldn't be happy with him. So, yeah, he could be very good, couldn't he?"
Okay.
Yeah, we're only halfway through the season.
Yeah. Indeed. That was a Group 1 racing recap. Thank you, boys, for the moment. Coming up next, we're going to look ahead to a classic in Ireland with a very special guest. Well, delighted to say that we are joined by one of the best racing analysts and experts in the business, Andy Holding. I hope you enjoyed that build-up, Andy, because we're expecting big things from you as you join us to preview the Irish Oaks and a few other races ahead for the weekend. Give us a brief synopsis of what you're looking forward to and the way that you would go about searching for winners in the races ahead.
Yeah, well, we're dealing predominantly with the racing over in the Curragh come the weekend. Unfortunately, we've got a fairly smallish field, or likely smallish field for the Irish Oaks. 1 or 2 of the other races over there make slightly more appeal. I tend to sort of like look at the Curragh and treat it like I would at any race over here. You know, obviously the time figures that were accumulated over the period of time up to this point are going to come into their own. And particularly for those sort of sprint races as well. I'm a big fan of looking at draw biases at the Curragh, trying to analyse the Friday night card with a view to looking at the Saturday racing and perhaps getting 1 or 2 angles there before everybody else has spotted it. Because, you know, in Ireland, you can certainly jump onto something before 1 or 2 of the UK punters have got there. They'll probably be looking at the English racing predominantly, UK racing. So there is some angles to be had.
There won't be too many thousand people watching this, Andy. Just a few thousand. Is there any draw bias that you've identified in the sort of previous runnings at the Curragh, so to speak, the previous meetings at the Curragh? Is there anything on the straight track that you've seen so far?
They tended to come up the near side rail at the last meeting, Sam. Horse called Come Gorshon, a horse that I quite liked, came up right up the stand side rail. It usually is when the ground goes on the easy side when they tend to migrate towards the near side rail, and there was some cutting the ground that day when Come Sean Gun won. But usually on when it's decent, or as it's likely to be on the fast side come the weekend, they tend to go down the middle. The stalls are situated in the middle as well out at the Curragh. They used to be up the stand side rail, but they're trying to negate that bias by putting it in the middle, opening up the track as well. They've made it a wider playing for everyone. So yeah, I would tend to be sort of like leaning towards middle drawn horses, unless we get any rain, but that isn't forecast.
All right, let's focus on the Irish Oaks if we can, Andy. And a lot of people expect Emily Upjohn to be the one to beat. Tuesday is potentially going to line up against her again, despite the fact that she obviously ran in the Irish Derby. How are you seeing this race shape up at the moment?
It's hard really to get away from Emily Upjohn, isn't it? I mean, I'm not a massive odds-on punter, unless I think, you know, a 4 to 6 shot is going to go off 1 to 3 through defections. I wouldn't be advocating back in a 4 to 6 shot. But I mean, she was hugely unlucky, wasn't she, in the Oaks? I'm not sure whether the little ruckus between John Gosden and Frankie, that was started by what happened with Emily Upjohn. She completely missed the break. She was not in the position that I'm sure Connections would have wanted or discussed beforehand. They would have probably said, well, get her in the first half dozen and then ride your race from there. Unfortunately, she was last, wasn't she, going up the hill? She's done remarkably well in the circumstances to even get anywhere near Tuesday, given that horse had a much smoother passage through, got first run, quickened up, went a couple of lengths clear, and Emily Upjohn did her utmost to try and bridge the gap. I thought it was a Herculean effort. Obviously, she had 1 or 2 issues since, but this has obviously been the plan ever since. You know, she couldn't make the gig at Royal Ascot. The wide open galloping spaces of the Curragh should suit her more, and you know, she's looked the best in her division. You know, pretty much from the start of the season till this point. Tuesday was a little bit disappointing. It has to be said in the against the Colts, against Westover in the Irish Derby, although I don't think Ryan probably was as proactive as you would have liked to seen him, you know, trying to give a really good Colts at the thick end of about 7 or 8 lengths head start. I don't think that really added up. But, you know, in the circumstances, she suppose didn't run too badly. But it's hard to see her, even though she's on home soil, coping with Emily Upjohn if she breaks cleanly and gets you know, a normal run through the race.
I might just pick you up on what you're saying about the Oaks, if you can, Andy. When we look back at the race, I think a lot of people mentioned that everyone talked about the fact that Emily Upjohn was a bit unlucky in the way the race unfolded. But wasn't there a point in the home straight where Emily Upjohn on Tuesday was probably level? If not, Emily Upjohn might have had her head in front. Frankie was still travelling well at the time, and then Ryan Moore asked Tuesday to pick up, and she did get to the front, did get a couple of lengths clear, yes. But in terms of the race unfolding, weren't they in relatively similar position? Say, I think about 2 furlongs or 2.5 furlongs from home?
Yeah, certainly take that on board. My argument the other way would be that Emily Upjohn obviously had to make up the ground lost to get to the point where she got to Tuesday's quarters or you know, upsides Tuesday. So you've got to factor that in as well. There's obviously a degree of effort that has to be used up to get yourself back into the race. I mean, you could split hairs and look at it from a positive point of view with Tuesday, the fact that she did manage to fend off Emily Upjohn from 2 down, given that, you know, there wasn't a huge amount of distance between them at Tattenham Corner. But you'd have to say, in the whole scheme of things in the race, the way the race developed, it definitely played into the hands of Tuesday more than Emily Upjohn. That was my view anyway on the day.
And Emily Upjohn was in front a yard before the line and a yard after.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
It was excruciating. It was just bad luck, really, wasn't it?
For Emily Upjohn, most certainly. So, Emily Upjohn for you?
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly see the case in point for backing something like Magical Lagoon each way. I mean, a Curragh winner. Obviously, she showed, you know, good battling qualities to win at Royal Ascot, winning the Ribblesdale. I know some felt that the runner-up gave it away a little bit by drifting left. But, you know, I thought she was going again at the line. She's a daughter of Galileo. She handles fast ground well. Jessie's horses are in great form. Andy will probably tell us more about that. But I think she had 5 on the bounce a week or so ago, and she had 8 in the last fortnight. So they're in great health. I thought the sort of 6 or 7 to 1 that was floating about for her early part of the week was a fair each way, Andy. Would you concur, or do you think she's got no chance?
No, absolutely, Sam. I think she's the obvious each way bet at the time of recording. I'm not sure what price she is now. You'd have to check that. But you could imagine the field size, you know, cutting up quite considerably. I mean, we might be in danger of getting a scenario whereby there's 7 runners or less, and if that's the case, if obviously you back Magical Lagoon now before the decks are formed, then you'll get paid out in 3 places, and it's hard to see her not being involved in some way, shape, or form, as you said, Sam, with the Jessica Harrington horses in such great form. I think she's had 8 winners now. You're quite right to mention the 5 on the spin. A lot of her fillies are going well as well, which I think is another important point. And Jessica is very much a street trainer. When she really does hit form, she can, have a massive run for about 2 or 3 weeks before they start falling away again. And albeit, a Ribblesdale suggests she's got a little bit to find on the 2 big 2 in the market. Well, at least she's done a good time figure at Royal Ascot. Looked very tough under pressure, and as you said as well, she's got form in the book at the Curragh, so she's got plenty going for her as well.
That Flame of Tara that she won, I think Jack Naylor and Cayenne Pepper both won that race and both finished second in the Oaks. Okay. So she's looking to go one better for the stable.
Good portents then for Magical Lagoon. I'm just going to mention a couple of other races if I can, Andy, on the weekend. The Scurry Handicap and the Sapphire Stakes. The Scurry Handicap, of course, over 6 furlongs. The Sapphire, the sprint, the group race over 5. Any pointers that you can help us with for both races?
Well, the Scurry Handicap, you got a lot of intertwining form. There's lots of Premier Handicaps running on and over 5, 5.5 on 6 furlongs at the Curragh as well. I'd basically try and stick to Curragh form if you can. Horses that run the track well, similar to Royal Ascot, I'd say. Both those 2 straight track courses. You often get the same kind of horses turning up time and time again. If you've sort of like held me to a short list for the Scurry Handicap, I'd say Prisoner's Dilemma will go really well. That horse has been a massive improvement for Johnny Levens in recent times. He was a good second behind a horse called Teresa Mendoza last time out. I thought ran with credit when coming over to York the other day and running in a group race. So I think that form is pretty solid. And the fact that Prisoner's Dilemma seems to be improving at the ripe old age of 6 is definitely a suggestion that he's going in the right way. And also another horse as well called Quarantine Dreams. He was a bit disappointed in our Wokingham over here, but not necessarily sure he ran to his very best that day. But he was back to form last time out. He's got good form here at the Curragh, as he's proven many times in the past. And you certainly have to pay respect to anything that Ken Condon runs at the moment. His horses are flying, particularly his handicappers. So those would be a couple I'd look at there. And a lot depends, Richie, on what ends up running in the Sapphire Stakes. There's several horses that are entered up to run at Royal Ascot. At Goodwood, Glorious Goodwood, for instance. Equilateral, who was a bit unlucky the other day at Sandown. Twilight Calls as well, he's entered up to run, but I presume they'll wait for Goodwood with him. And with that in mind, I'd probably suggest that Moonista is the one that will take advantage. She's got an amazing record here at the Curragh. 5 furlongs is her trip. I thought she ran admirably in the King's Stand Stakes behind a Native Strip. She finished 4th. So I think she's basically coming here the form horse of the season in many respects, even though she hasn't actually got her head in front. Just think she's been a bit unlucky with draws. The trip has probably not suited her, but 5 furlongs here at the Curragh, absolutely bang on. And I'd expect her to be one of the favourites on the day. So yeah, Moonista would be my strongest pick out of those I've mentioned.
Moonista and the Sapphire, Prisoner's Dilemma, and Quarantine Dream. Quarantine Dream, who of course I backed in the Wokingham to no avail. So yes. Now's the time to back Quarantine Dream when I won't be on. I should also, if I can, pick your brains on the Super Sprint, the Weatherby Super Sprint at Newbury on the weekend. Again, any pointers? Greatly appreciated.
Well, the main 3 trainers for this race is Richard Hannon, Richard Fahey and Rod Millman. They've dominated this race in the last decade. So you certainly have to pay respect to anything that those respected trainers have got. High-numbered horses as well. Been through the last sort of 10 years to have a look where you need to be drawn on the track. The lowest stall that the winners come out of is stall 10. Predominantly, they tend to come from the middle towards the near side. So obviously, without knowing the draw, that's going to be a bit tricky. I think Maria Branwell is probably the form horse, having finished 3rd in the Queen Mary, behind Dramatised, of course. That form has worked out relatively well. I thought Miami Girl ran really well in the Queen Mary. Now, she obviously has represented Richard Hannon, so that ticks that particular box. And I thought she's been improving as the season's gone on. She didn't do a big time figure first time out. She was a bit disappointing in the Mary Gate. Ran really well in the Queen Mary, finishing creditable 5th. and then she won a little small race at Windsor last time out. But I do like her profile. Like I say, I think she's getting better with each run. And there's another horse called Dare to Dream, trained by Richard Fahey. He lowered the colours of none other than Rocket Rodney first time out at Nottingham. We know what Rocket Rodney's gone on to do subsequently. He won a listed race for George Scott the other day. And he was a bit disappointed when he ran at Ripon last time out, but he wouldn't be the first 2-year-old that went to Ripon and didn't handle the undulations there. And it was over 6 furlongs. Interesting that Richard Fahey has kept him off ever since. He's resisted the temptation to run him at Royal Ascot and various other targets he could have gone down. And he's saved him specifically for this race. I think he's up one of only 2 entries for Richard Fahey. So those have been my 2 against the field. If you're following the formula of Richard Han and Richard Fahey, Miami Girl and Dare to Dream.
Dare to Hope. Dare to Hope, yeah. Okay.
So I'm a Miami Girl fan. I thought, you know, she got interfered with at the start of the Mary Gate, so I think he could strike that run from a card. And she didn't get the best of passages out the stalls in the Queen Mary either. And I like that form line. I think Dramatised is one of the smartest finishes. She's second favourite for Nunthorpe. So if we think that form's good, then Maria Bramwell and Miami Girl are the 2 to take out that race.
Okay. I'll give a mention to Rogue Spirit, who
Yeah.
second at Beverley. The form of that race.
Unlucky, wasn't he, a bit?
Well, he was in front long enough. I mean, he was he was unlucky in the sense that Chateau got a run. But Chateau since went on to run really well at Royal Ascot, and obviously the 3rd horse home in that race was the Riddler, so the form is strong. And the good thing about it is that he's had a run after that. So his first 2 runs, he's been out the gates like lightning and has led. But he was able to settle a little bit better off the pace and take a lead when he won, admittedly, an easy race at Wolverhampton. So
Clever to take him there, though, just to educate him a little bit more as well.
missed Ascot on purpose for this race and took the easy route. So expected to go well. Fingers crossed, though, about the draw. I do agree. What about, you know, you said high draw. One thing I've always been concerned about, Andy, at Newbury is being right up against the stand-side rail. It's always been the one place I don't want to be. I don't mind being high, so 5 off the stand-side rail is as far as I want to be. I don't want to be any closer than that, because it seems that in the last 12 months at least.
Looked at dead rail, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you very rarely get horses that come up right up against the stand side for rail in a big field at Newbury, that's for sure. Middle to high. So you're looking anything between 10 and, if you're going to get maximum fill, I think maximum fill's 25, something like, or maybe even bigger. Anything between 10 and 20 would be ideal. That seems to be where the majority of the main winners come from in the super sprint.
Yeah. Okay. Last thing I'm going to ask you, Andy, because obviously you've given us Emily Upjohn for the Oaks, a positive mention for Magical Lagoon, a couple for the super sprint. I like the way you spoke about Dare to Dream for Richard Fahey. That sounds interesting. Dare to Hope. Dare to Hope. I've been Andy Holding. I've been Andy Holding. Prisoner's Dilemma and Quarantine Dream. It's the dream. It's definitely Quarantine Dream, not Quarantine Hope, isn't it? Yeah. And Monista and the Sapphire. If I had to ask you to pick out one out of all of that you would be having a bet on, which one would it be?
I'd probably say Monista, Rishi. I've always been a huge fan of Jack Davidson's filly. I followed her as a 2-year-old. She always did some good time. Samuel obviously well know as well. We keep the same time figures. She always seems to run up to a very high standard. I don't think she's quite Group 1 level. Certainly not for winning a Group 1 just yet, but she always runs well in Group 1s. But it's that Curragh form, which is what I like. It's very similar, like I said, to Ascot form. You know what you're going to get with her. You know that she travels really strongly off a fast run race, which ideally that's what'll be the case on Saturday. Good to firm ground will be ideal. Everything looks set fair for a huge run from Monista. I'll be disappointed if she doesn't give us a good run for our money.
Well, so will I, because I'm now going to back it because of you. Andy, as always, a real pleasure to chat to you. You promise to come back on the show again?
Yeah, will do. Yeah, if you'll have me. It's good, short, sweet today, but hopefully we've covered 1 or 2 decent points, and predominantly if we can get a win or 2 out of that lot I mentioned.
I was slightly worried about that pause when I asked the question, but I'm hoping it was just a buffering issue.
It's a satellite pause up in North Wales, that's what it is.
Andy Holding, thank you very much for joining us this week, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed for all those selections. Cheers, Andy.
Cheers, Andy. No problem, guys. Yeah, see you soon. Take care.
So after that chat with Andy, we're going to pick up with Pat and Sam and just reflect on a couple of the races that he mentioned coming up this weekend. And in particular, the Irish Oaks. It's likely to be a small field, Pat. But I think there's a bit of quality in there with Emily Upjohn and possibly Tuesday locking horns again. How do you see that renewed battle?
I would say I'd be fairly sure Emily Upjohn is a better filly. But with Tuesday, bear in mind she was only a June foal, so she was only 3 on Oaks Day. So she's surely going to keep improving even more, I would think. Emily's better, but not appreciably for me. And if prices dictate opinions, if you say to me, well, you can back Emily at 4-6 or Tuesday at 7-2, I'd rather be back in the 7-2 chance. But is it a match? Well, maybe, maybe not. I get the love for Magical Lagoon. And as I say, if you want the hottest stable in Ireland at the moment, well, that's her barn.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure Joseph O'Brien, he might run a couple of interesting fillies in the race that are pounds to find, but they're not going to run unless they're thinking they can win the race. So I don't think she's bomb-proof at any rate. I think she's a bit of a lay at 4-6, Emily Upjohn.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Might get a bit of evens then, folks. Just to reiterate, I think Magical Lagoon. I'm surprised, knowing Andy as I know him.
Yeah.
Those snide each way bets with 3 places still on offer. I'm amazed he hasn't made that his nap of the week.
The Super Sprint, which he also mentioned, strong mention for Dare to Hope.
Yeah, got it right.
For Richie
Third time
Farley.
lucky.
One of a couple of selections he mentioned. What's your own view on that race?
Well, it's a race where the stats gurus absolutely love this race because, as Andy alluded to there, that you back a Hannon horse or a Fahy horse, and you back one that's got a good draw. So that shortens it considerably. But this time the market's a little bit different. It's headed by Tom Clover's Rogue Spirit, who again has a perfectly decent chance. And we sponsored the race that he was second in at Beverley, and we had the Royal Ascot winner in third that day. So that's a good, solid line of form. They went at fast pace throughout. He's going to have his backers. But on official ratings, Maria Bramwell's got that third in the Queen Mary. She's the only horse rated 100 or more in the race, so she's going to be there. But this is a race, I just think, wait till the final decks. Wait till you get the draw. Nothing's going to happen with the weather. And if there is going to be the maximum field of 25 runners, and why wouldn't there be, firms are going to be at least first 5 places on the race. Some may even be first 6 places on the race. So you're being asked to have your bets right now, at first 3 or first 4 or whatever. Nothing's going to happen at the top end of the market. It's fine if you fancy one at 33 to 1 or whatever. But even then, you can probably be 20 on the day.
Yeah.
Wait till you get the decks, and wait till you get those sexy each way tails, and which obviously bet 365 will be right front.
Well, Denise isn't going to be happy with you telling punters not to take the 11-4 now, 3 places or the 7.
We're all friends, though, aren't we? We're all friends.
Congruence from Pat Cooney.
I'm going to get on the phone to Denise. There might be a job going.
I've found my yellow pen, by the way.
Oh, yes?
Yeah, it's a long story.
Absolutely,
Now's not the time for
I just need a green one now, don't we? We were fully branded up.
We're almost at the end of this episode of Racing Weekly. Just a brief wrap by saying that in next week's show, we are likely to be talking about the news on the whip review.
The Pro-Cush review.
The Pro-Cush review.
Yeah.
Well, who knows what we're going to be finding out this week. Early thoughts on what you've heard?
It fills me with joy, Rish. It fills me with joy. I think there's going to be amendments, probably more National Hunt-wise than flat, I think.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
Pat?
Well, we see what happens, but if the rules are going to be even stricter,
which is, let's clarify for people, overuse of the whip beyond the permitted level, it's been mooted that will result in disqualification.
Sure. Now, punters love double result. So if you're first past the post, you're safe, and if you get the race, you're also safe. But if these rules come in, and honestly, if horses start getting disqualified once, twice, 3 times a day, sound like Lionel Richie there, don't they? on a regular daily basis, I'm sure many bookmakers will think it's just not practical to offer double results.
But it only needs one, doesn't it? Hopefully, the jockeys will be clever enough. Somebody will transgress, lose the race, and then, as we've seen with the interference rules, etc., you get one as a deterrent, and then hopefully it cleans the whole game up.
But if the rules had come in now, the Grand National winner would have been disqualified. So that would have been mayhem, wouldn't it?
Oh, not
for me. I'll back the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th.
Well, the old, double result. What a result. The Grand National you're paying out on.
Come to Uncle Pat. He'll sort you out.
Right, I'm sure we'll be talking about this next week. Pat, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you through the whole show. As always, Sam, thank you as well. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. As always, a pleasure to chat to the team. And thank you as well for all the contributions that you've made to us on social media. If you've liked what you've heard or watched in this or any previous episode, then leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. We are back next week to talk about the Irish Oaks and what happens there and who got it right and who got it wrong. We also look ahead to the King George, where we're likely to see Derby winner Desert Crown lining up for St Michael Stout, bidding to follow in the footsteps of Adayar, who of course completed the same double 12 months ago. But for now, from Sam, Pat, Andy Holding and myself on the team on Racing Weekly, we'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.